What's up, Cellar Dwellers? This is Overlord Dan, bringing you another installment in the Movie Cellar's Month of Horrors. And tonight I watched the 1998 teen horror thriller mystery murder mayhem extravaganza Urban Legend. And I've got to admit, this was the first time I watched it, and I thought it was really dumb. Um, I thought that the biggest problem was I hated all the characters. Like, especially the people I was supposed to like and the girl I was supposed to be rooting for. Like, they don't ever do a good job of making you care about her or want her to live. And I thought that they did a pretty crappy job of like I appreciate that they want to make you think, "Oh, here's somebody who looks like they're a murderer," and then being like, "But they're not." But they did it so obviously that it was like a little ham-fisted and felt a little bit stupid. So, it didn't really it fell pretty flat in my opinion. Um I liked that Robert Englund was in it, Freddy Krueger. And he's one of the characters that you think might be the murderer. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, who knows? He's not. Um the dude from the Mighty Ducks, Joshua Jackson's in it. I thought it was pretty funny that cuz he's also in Dawson's Creek, and there's a scene where he's starting his car and the I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. That song starts on the radio in his car, which is funny because that's the theme song in Dawson's Creek. So I appreciated that little nod. Tara Reid's in it. She's pretty fun as a character. Um yeah, so there's a few cool actors in it. But just the movie overall, it just it felt uninspired. It felt like it really fell flat, and like it had ideas, but and maybe the problem is that I don't really connect with the concept of urban legends, and I feel like you have to know these urban legends for the movie to really work well. Like you have to go, "Oh, I totally get that death because that's like that thing that I heard at school," but I don't remember ever hearing any of these urban legends except the car, like the car driving with the headlights off and then, you know, attacking you when you flash your lights at them. And I actually didn't hear that at school or anything. I remember my mom being convinced that that was a thing and her saying, "Oh, those gangs, they've made it up our way and you got to watch out for that." And I just, even as a kid, thinking, "Ma, that's ridiculous." I did think it was kind of cool that the movie takes place in Maine, or at least like the dean's car has a Maine license plate, so probably Maine. It's at like a made up college, but I think the made up college exists in Maine. So I'll just fire through the categories real quick, and we'll wrap it up. And as always, each category I'll give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or say it's mediocre. Uh, Gore, mediocre. There's not a lot of gore. There's a couple scenes that are pretty gross. Um, Particularly, there's a dog that gets microwaved. You don't see that it's a dog, but it's just he opens the door and the microwave is just full of guts. There's a lot of blood. Not a lot of blood like coming out of people, but just like blood on the floor and shit. There's a girl with her wrist cut. There's a dude who's hung from a tree. You know, some of that stuff. But it's going to take a lot for me to give any movie a thumbs up on the gore because I love zombie movies and there's not a lot of horror that does better at gore than the zombie genre. So we'll see. This one definitely mediocre at best. Music, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up. It had some good nostalgic music in it. Some like industrial rock from the late '90s, which I mean, maybe it's not great, but for me in my mid 30s, like that's always gonna get me. I love that stuff. Ambiance, I'm gonna give it a mediocre. There were parts of it that I thought the ambiance was really solid. Like, it was nighttime and it was raining, and they were in the woods, and they were like, running through the hallways of the school at one point. But then there were other scenes that just didn't feel real. Like, there's a scene where she's parked with a dude out in the woods, but it looks like it's on a stage. It looks like maybe from a sitcom or something, which I thought felt more silly than scary. Creativity, I give it a thumbs down. And the reason for this is it feels a lot like Scream, where Scream was like, hey, we're going to go through and we're going to make this story based around the tropes of horror movies. This was like, hey, we're going to base our movie around all of these urban legends, which are essentially like tropes. Um, so, like word of mouth tropes. Um, so I felt like, and it banked on sort of that cash grab that Scream had created, bringing slashers into like the late 90s and getting teens into them and making them fun again. And it just felt like it wasn't really putting a lot of effort in, and it was just kind of trying to get in on that. So, thumbs down on creativity. Jump scares, I'm gonna give it. There's a couple really good ones. So just to be generous, I'll give it a thumbs up on this. There were a couple scenes where you didn't really. It really came out of nowhere, and I thought they did okay with that. But the thing with jump scares is once you've seen the movie once, those go out the window. Lasting impact. That's a thumbs down. This movie felt just totally throwaway. Like, hey, I watched it, great, gonna move on with my life. A couple scenes like the dog in the microwave probably will stick with me, but overall, it was just very dull. Overall, I'm gonna give this one a thumbs down, and it didn't. I The biggest reason is just that the characters felt pretty meaningless to me. And I can't get into a movie if I don't connect with the people in the movie. So, um, yeah, that's about all I have for Urban Legend. If you're trying to hit up a 90s slasher, horror, sort of comedy, fun movie, this is not the one to go with. Scream, or I Know What You Did Last Summer, or even friggin' Final Destination are all a lot more fun than this one. This one felt pretty heartless, pretty empty. So anyway, that's all I have. And tune in tomorrow night, and we'll give you another episode of the Movie Sellers Month of Horrors. Bleh.